CBS, America's #1 independent television network, presents the following sports exclusive.
3rd down and goal at the 1 for Michigan State. Can the Iowa defense hold? L.J. Scott running right. No! Get in! Or get him! Yes! Touchdown Spartans!
Rodgers in trouble. It's going to get there. He turned 32 yesterday. Does he have a vintage moment in the end zone? It is caught for the win! Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. A game ender for the Packers.
Welcome to Basically a Football Show.
Basically a Football Show, week 14 in college, the championship weekend in college football, conference championship weekend, I should say, and week 13 in the National Football League. Greg, it was actually a pretty good weekend of football. The NFL, still relatively interesting. You got the Panthers still chugging along. You get the Patriots falling again, but we're going to start in college because Championship Saturday finally produced our playoff.
Yes, we have the 4 teams in the college football playoff.
The 4 teams, as they were a week ago, well, more or less. Number 1, the Clemson Tigers. Number 2, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Michigan State moves up from number 5 with their win in the Big Ten title game up to number 3. And Oklahoma didn't play, and they stay in the top 4 at number 4. They get moved away from the Dallas semifinal site had they stayed at the 3rd spot. Didn't want to give a lower seed a home field advantage or anything like that. So Oklahoma will play Clemson in the Orange Bowl, and Alabama will play Michigan State in the Cotton Bowl.
So right out of the gate, I'm going to ask you, I think Stanford got a little bit screwed this year.
Yeah, I think Stanford's as good as anybody else in that top 4 right now. They just, the 2 losses, you can't get over those, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I understand that. I think I talked about it last week, though. That's a stigma they've got to get past because if you look at it.
Oh, they're better than Oklahoma.
I think so. They're definitely better than Iowa. And they're probably better than Michigan State. But it is what it is. But, like you predicted, nothing really changed other than the seedings, which I guess if we don't want Oklahoma to have a home game, that's probably the way you got to do it. So it's a pretty good field. I think it's surprising. I don't think anybody had Clemson at number 1 going into the season.
Wire to wire, though, they were number 1 in every single ranking. Aside from the AP rankings, they were number 1 in every single playoff ranking. 13-0, the only Division I school to finish with an undefeated record this season. And I mean, there's no reason for them to not be the number 1 team in the country, really.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting playoff. We got the Alabama and a Big Ten team again this year. Mm-hmm. I don't think I like Michigan State's chances as much as I liked Ohio State's chances last year.
We could talk about that. But we'll let's see how we got to where we are. First off, we'll start with number 1 Clemson. They were playing number 10 North Carolina State, a sexy pick for a lot of people to maybe set some chaos in motion at the top of the rankings. Really, the only team anyone thought had a chance of knocking off its opponent. And North Carolina came to play. They were tight with Clemson early. They led for a little while, but slowly but surely Clemson pulled away in the second half. North Carolina scored late, and they brought the game within 8. And then they kicked an onside kick and recovered it, but they were flagged for offside. The only problem with that, there wasn't anyone offside. Not
even close.
It wasn't an unbalanced formation. There wasn't nobody started early. It was a bad call. And so North Carolina had a re-kick. They didn't get it, and Clemson ran out the game for the 45-37 win. But North Carolina definitely had a shot there. They put a scare in Clemson, I thought. Yeah,
but with that offside call, I watched that thing 10 times, and I don't even see where you could have said, okay, maybe. No. I mean, it was just not even close.
It's almost like they purposely did it.
I don't want to say that, but I'm not going to rule it out either because the ACC has had plenty of trouble with officiating this year, and man, that call was just a perfect example of why they've had so much trouble. That was just a ridiculous call. But you also got to make a lot of assumptions that if Clemson does get the ball, do they score, then do they get 2? So I'm not going to say it screwed them out of the game, but it certainly screwed them out of a chance to maybe win the game.
Exactly. But props to North Carolina. They played pretty hard in this game.
Yeah.
Clemson, there was never a point where I thought Clemson was truly in trouble. North Carolina was playing with them, but Clemson was the better team up and down all day.
Yeah, we waited for Clemson all season, and they just didn't do it. They're 13-0, and I got to say right now, out of the playoff field, I think they're probably the favorite in my book.
I would think so. I mean, Deshaun Watson played phenomenally. He's one of the Heisman Trophy finalists. He had a pretty good day, 26-42, 289 throwing, 3 touchdowns, but I think he also had like over 110 yards rushing. He ran the ball like 8 consecutive times on one of those drives in the first half and got Clemson's offense started to roll a little bit there. But Clemson 13-0, number 1 seed, and highly deserved as the ACC champ. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, I can't argue with the pick at all. I mean, they've, early on we were kind of like Clemson, really, but they have put up the resume, I think, that they deserve the spot. You can't really argue with it at this point.
Definitely so. Number 2 was and is the Alabama Crimson Tide. They were in the SEC championship game against Florida, who could really use somebody that could throw the football.
Yeah.
Alabama got started early with a safety, and for a while this game was kind of slow, and it looked like maybe Florida's defense would keep them in this game. But Alabama's defense, just as good, held down the Gators for a majority of the game. They got a little life late, but Alabama was never, ever in danger of losing this game. 29-15, they knock off the Gators.
How good would Florida be, though, if they had even a semblance of an offense? Because they just don't have one. I mean, it's as simple as that. They just can't score points. And I don't care how good your defense is. If you can't score points with your offense, the defense is on the field way too long, and, you see the result. But they played Alabama tougher than I thought they would. I mean, I don't think Alabama was ever in any danger, but I thought this would be a blowout from start to finish. I didn't think it would be this close.
No, and Derrick Henry, also one of the Heisman Trophy finalists. Another pretty good day, 44 carries. He's been the milk horse for him, or the milk cow, I should say.
Isn't that 2 weeks in a row now with 40-plus carries for him?
Yeah, 189 yards and a touchdown in this one. Pretty easy for the rushing yards leader in the NCAA this season, Derrick Henry.
And I think going into the clubhouse, the favorite in the Heisman Trophy race at this point.
Maybe. I would throw my vote somewhere else, but I'll save that when we talk about it.
Okay.
The number 3 team in the country was Oklahoma. They, as I said, didn't play. They had finished their Big 10 schedule or Big 12 schedule already, and they just fall down to 4 after. If you wanted to see a man's football game, quote unquote, if you wanted to see old rough and tumble, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, or like 2 yards in a cloud of turf,
2 yards in a cloud of those little rubber pellets. Yeah.
The Big Ten championship game was, despite being low scoring, it was one of the most tightly contested football games I have ever seen. Number 4 Iowa, undefeated going into the game. Michigan State, just the one loss. It was 6-3 at halftime. Neither team could really gain an advantage. Michigan State took the lead with a couple of field goals in the third quarter, but in the fourth, Iowa broke the mold and threw an 85-yard touchdown pass. Where did that come from?
I don't know.
And they took the lead, and it looked like Iowa, was the defense was playing so well, their line playing so well, Michigan State having trouble moving the ball. But with 9 minutes or with 10 minutes left, Michigan State got the ball and ran it and ran it and ran it. And just got chunk after chunk after chunk on a 9-minute, 22-play drive that ended with the running back, L.J. Scott, extending just over the goal line. Like, that drive was excruciating.
Yeah, it was
just 2 yards, and then just barely getting those first downs and then barely getting the touchdown.
Iowa just couldn't get off the field in that last drive. And Michigan State, I mean, that was just a battle of wills in that last 9 minutes of that game. And Michigan State just had a little more willpower, I guess, because, wow, it was just you just kept thinking, okay, Iowa's going to stop them at some point, and they just couldn't seem to do it. It was. I don't want to say it was an exciting game because, I mean, it was, but it wasn't. If you like scoring and you like, EA Sports style football, this wasn't the game for you. But, man, they were just evenly matched, and it was just a tough game start to finish. And props to the Spartans for pulling off that drive at the end. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was what someone would say a, quote, man's drive or whatever.
Yeah, I guess.
But on the other side of it, I was thoroughly impressed with Iowa.
Yeah.
You know, almost everybody had been knocking them, saying who they played. They're not that good. They played Michigan State, who had won several big games this season. They played them as tight as you could possibly play somebody and still lose.
Yeah.
So all the props to the Hawkeyes. They were a big physical team, and you kind of see the way they play. It's now easy to see how all those games they played this year were the way they were, because they just played a tight, hard-nosed style of football that nobody's really going to pull away from each other if you're playing into their game plan.
Yeah, the way they play, their style is not one that's going to put up a lot of big scores. So they don't seem as impressive because they win a lot of games 27-10 and along those lines. You don't see the big, huge numbers. But, yeah, I knew they were pretty good, but they really impressed me in the Big Ten championship game. They're legit. I think that either team could have come out of that and had a shot at winning it all.
So Michigan State wins. They move up to number 3 in the final playoff rankings. So that set the playoff field. Stanford was playing at the same time as Clemson and Michigan State, hoping for North Carolina to maybe upset the Tigers and give Stanford a window to jump in there. Didn't happen. Stanford played USC in the Pac-12 title game, and it was a all-around great game from Stanford. USC, again, they played them tight, but just like the game earlier in the year, Stanford pulled away late, and mostly due to my Heisman favorite, Christian McCaffrey, who leads the country in all-purpose yardage, passed Reggie Bush and Barry Sanders in this game for career all-purpose yards, and caught a touchdown, ran for a touchdown, and threw for a touchdown against USC. McCaffrey was all over the field, and I think he's the most well-rounded player in the country. I would vote for him for Heisman. Maybe that's Pac-12 bias, but also because of that Pac-12-ness and how many games Stanford has played very, very late. It might hurt him in the long run when it comes to Heisman Trophy favorite, but he's the third finalist alongside Deshaun Watson and Derrick Henry. You
know what, though? You're right about that West Coast thing in the late games, because I didn't even think about him when I started thinking Heisman candidates. But you want to talk about a guy that put his resume out there for everybody to see. It was him in this game. Ran for 207 yards, receiving for 105, and he threw a touchdown pass. Mm-hmm. If that's not the definition of a Heisman Trophy winner, I don't know what is.
Yeah, he was right there. He's second in the country in rushing. He's not up there in receiving, but the return yards, he's up there. He's an all-around player, and a lot of people have put him in the conversation saying he's the best all-purpose player, or at least this season has been one of the best all-purpose yardage seasons since Reggie Bush was with USC. And that's high praise, but nobody knows. Because Stanford had the early loss to Northwestern, kind of went back under the radar, and he just having good game after good game. And Stanford played a lot of the very, very late window Pac-12 games where it's starting at 10 and 11 o'clock Eastern time. Mm-hmm. So people aren't going to see him. He might get votes in the western part of the country, but I would have to say I would agree with you that they're probably going to end up giving it to Derrick Henry, because everyone saw Alabama. Everyone knows how good Derrick Henry is. Everyone loves the Alabama Crimson Tide. And even with Deshaun Watson, he's on the number 1 team in the country, and he's been really great all year. But Clemson's not Alabama in terms of recognition. So I would have to agree in saying that Derrick Henry is your Heisman favorite, but I would give my vote to Christian McCaffrey.
Well, you know what? Giving it some thought now, I think I'd have to go with you on that vote, because at the end of the day, see, that's always the thing with the Heisman, though. What is it exactly? Is it the best college football player? Is it the best player? Is it like an MVP award, best player on a good team? We don't really know what the true definition of it is, because I want to say way back in the Stone Ages that I think it was Paul Hornig won it on a Notre Dame team that had 1 win all season. So is it just a guy that's just that good or what? But again, if you're talking, and that's what they always talk about, the last game of the season, that's your last chance to put your resume together for the Heisman, and McCaffrey just went out there and did everything. But the West Coast bias, and it does exist, is going to hurt him badly in this. So really, unless you just have people that are really going to study this and really put a lot of time and thought into their vote, I think that him being where he is and when he played and all that's going to hurt his cause, and that's too bad. Yeah,
it's Christian McCaffrey. He led the country in all-purpose yards, 3,496 all-purpose yards this season. That's
like almost 300 yards a game.
Yeah, that's a full 1,000 more than the next highest all-purpose yardage player, Tyler Ervin from San Jose State. McCaffrey was putting up 268 yards per game total.
Wow. Well, it'll be interesting. I think that, I don't know. I'd love to see the upset, but I do think that Henry's got it in the bag just because it's Alabama, high-profile school, plays in prime time a lot of the time in the Eastern time zone and all that. And it's either him or Deshaun Watson because, number one team, quarterback on the number one team, et cetera, et cetera.
The only guy only 3 Heisman finalists this year, and the player that was a lot of people had as the favorite early was Leonard Fournette. Still finished 3rd in the country in rushing, and he actually finished 4th in the country in all-purpose yards, 1,950, putting up 177 total yards a game when it comes down to everything. His only response to being left off the Heisman Trophy finalist was a sad face emoji. So
I think those 3 games where he kind of disappeared when they lost those 3 straight, that hurt him a lot.
Oh, yeah. No, that's for sure. I'm not saying he should be in there, but he could have been a finalist. Once you look at the numbers, he could have been. Yeah,
I don't think it would have killed anybody to put him in there, but I guess it all comes down to the votes, right? It's just like
it's a percentage. Yeah. It's a percent thing.
But those 3 losses in a row, and he disappeared. Was it against Alabama? And they lost 2 in a row. But he kind of didn't do what he'd been doing all season, and he picked a bad time to do it, which was towards the end of the season, like kind of at the 3-quarter mark, and that's not where you want to have that happen.
Only 2 other really important games on Saturday. The American Athletic Conference Championship. Houston, number 19, knocked off Temple 24-13. I watched a good portion of this game, and Houston looked to be in control pretty much the whole way. So Houston wins the inaugural American Athletic Conference Championship. They will be the Group of 5 representative going to the Peach Bowl to take on Florida State.
Wait a minute. They're going to the Peach Bowl?
Not the Peach Bowl. Sorry. The Peach Bowl.
Wait, no, because the Group of 5 team's supposed to always go to the Fiesta Bowl. It's just how it works. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, no, it's the Peach Bowl.
What in the world are Ohio State and Notre Dame doing in that bowl game? They don't belong there.
No. Since you mentioned Ohio State, Houston also in their first year with head coach. I forget his name. He was the offensive coordinator at Ohio State last season.
I think he didn't make a difference. Look at the offense last year for the Buckeyes compared to this year. Yeah.
And the other ranked team that played on Saturday, Baylor, looking to maybe stay in consideration for one of those New Year's Day bowls, lost its 3rd-string quarterback early in this game. I do have one of their wide receivers play quarterback, and they fall to Texas 23-17 in the final. Not the way you want to go out for Baylor, but it's just kind of a season of attrition for Baylor, and they finally go out.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it would be easy to say, see, look, Baylor's not any good, and this proves it. But when you've got a wide receiver playing quarterback, you can't hold that against a team. I mean, I know Texas isn't very good, but come on.
So our New Year's Day bowls are set. We obviously had the 2 playoff games, as we said, Michigan State, Alabama in the Cotton Bowl, and Clemson, Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. Those are on New Year's Eve. The number 1 team in the country gets the early slot, the 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. slot, and Alabama, obviously the more marquee team, gets the 8 p.m. slot.
Who was it?
Here's the big thing with that Alabama-Michigan State game. Mark D'Antonio, the head coach of Michigan State, comes right off that Nick Saban coaching tree. Plays Michigan State, maybe not the same talent level, but they play a similar style to Alabama. I think that they'd be pretty prepared to play an Alabama-style football game at the end of it. And I think Michigan State has the better quarterback in this matchup.
Definitely.
Alabama has the better running back, probably the better defense. But Michigan State's defense is no slouch either. And if Connor Cook can catch some fire, maybe Michigan State knocks off Alabama, and maybe Alabama doesn't want to play the Big Ten ever again.
Something you thought you would never hear just 3 short years ago.
Right.
I think the SEC is still a very good conference, but I don't think it's what it used to be, say, 5 years ago. I like Michigan State's chances a lot in this game because you're right. They play very similar styles. And when you come right down to it, one team has a good quarterback, the other one not so much. And I think that gives the Spartans the edge in this because I think other than that, they match it pretty well. Now, granted, the Spartans don't have a Derrick Henry in the backfield, but they have a defense good enough to at least contain him. So I like Michigan State's chances in this a lot.
I like their chances as well. I think that's easily the toughest of the two to pick for me. I think that's very close. Clemson, Oklahoma. Look, Oklahoma can score pretty well, but so can Clemson, especially against the Oklahoma defense that doesn't have defense. I got to think Clemson is a big favorite here.
I would think so. I would think so. Oklahoma's in the same spot Ohio State was in last year. If you want to prove you belong here, you've got to at least win one. And that would be enough for me to say, okay, maybe they deserve to be there. If you want to really prove it, go out and win it all like Ohio State did last year. But short of that, I would pick Stanford over this team every single time. I'd probably put Iowa in over Oklahoma. I would put Ohio State in over Oklahoma. I just don't think they're that good. They didn't play anybody. I mean, you could say, well, they played. Well, you talked about it a couple shows ago.
They beat Tennessee.
Okay, big deal.
Yeah, that's their one out of conference.
But they play teams that are kind of like inflated in the rankings because they don't play anybody but each other. But of the two, I think I'd take Michigan State, and I think Clemson easily beats Oklahoma.
Yeah, I go Clemson. Man, the other thing is, you think Nick Saban's going to lose 2 consecutive playoff games to Big Ten schools?
Well, it's not entirely in his hands. I mean, he can only coach. I will say this. I liked Ohio State's chances better last year against Alabama than I like Michigan State's chances this year.
Yeah.
But I like it, though. I like the Big Ten SEC matchup again. I think another Big Ten win probably pretty much erases the stigma at that point that they can't beat the SEC and all that. So I've got to root for the Big Ten in this, even though I'm one of those people that thinks that rooting for a conference is kind of silly. But then again, I understand it sometimes.
So those are the 2 playoff semifinal games that we played on New Year's Eve. The other New Year's 6 bowl game on New Year's Eve, number 18 Houston taking on number 9 Florida State in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in Atlanta. That's the early game on New Year's Eve. I think Houston's got a pretty darn good shot at knocking off Florida State in this game.
I do too, and I'll tell you why, because Houston wants to be here. I'm not so sure Florida State's all that excited to be playing in the Peach Bowl. And sometimes that makes a big difference. I think the Cougars are going to give them a game.
Oh, I think so. I definitely agree with you there. On New Year's Day, the 3 bowl games on New Year's Day. The first one in the New Year's 6, the Battle Frog Fiesta Bowl. Number 8 Notre Dame, number 7 Ohio State. Greg, who's more obnoxious?
As a fan base?
Yes.
I'm probably going to give that one to us, I think. Buckeye Nation is definitely a little more annoying, probably a lot more annoying than Notre Dame is. What would you say?
It's close. Was Ohio State's last trip to the Fiesta Bowl that championship game?
No, they went after that. I don't remember who they played.
Actually, I think that's a pretty entertaining bowl game.
But it's a great matchup.
Yeah, and it'll be well represented, too, because I know for a fact that Notre Dame and Ohio State are both well represented in the Phoenix area.
Both schools travel incredibly well, so any bowl game is going to be happy to have these two.
Yeah. Right after that one, it will be the Rose Bowl game presented by Northwestern Mutual. Number 6 Stanford taking on number 5 Iowa. Iowa only drops to 5 after their loss to Michigan State. If you like physical play, if you like offensive lines, go ahead and watch this football game. It's going to end up being like 20-17.
If you want to see what the NFL looked like back when the quality of play was a lot better, watch this game. This is going to give you a really good representation of that. It's going to be a lot. Well, I don't know if it's going to be quite like Michigan State, Iowa was, but very similar. You're not going to see a lot of spread offense. You're not going to see 60 points put on the board. You're going to see good defense and well-played football. But I'm taking Stanford all the way in this.
And the last game in the New Year's 6, the redheaded stepchild of all these matchups, number 12 Ole Miss and number 16 Oklahoma State.
Interesting matchup because they rarely play each other, but yeah, not a whole lot of marquee value here.
But that's your big bowl games on as far as those go. That puts a cap on the college football regular season.
Wow, that went quick, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really did.
All right.
Let's check out what's going on in the professional ranks. On to the NFL, and we're going to start on Thursday, where the most improbable ending of the Sunday or the NFL slate this weekend. Your Packers, Greg. I left them high and dry. I was doing a basketball game at the time, and I saw the lines were up 20-0, and I was like, oh, man, poor Packers. Greg's probably just in shambles. This defense is probably killing them. The offense is nowhere to be found. What happened? And then they came to life, and they got some luck at the end. A face mask that may or may not be a face mask.
Well, while we're throwing out awards, let's give Aaron Rodgers an acting award for that face mask call because he really sold it.
In real time, though, I give it to him. When you break it down and go frame by frame and look at the letter of the law, it's not a face mask, but I wasn't mad at the call. But it gave the Packers one more chance for Aaron Rodgers to throw a 61-yard game-ending, game-winning Hail Mary touchdown pass to Richard Rodgers. The first time a game is, or the longest game-ending, game-winning play in NFL history. And the Packers, they pulled one out in Detroit, 27-23. They stayed 8-4, right up at the top of the NFC Norris.
So, throughout the season this year, I've told you about games that I watch, and then I would get mad and I'd turn it off and I'd miss things.
Oh, no.
Last week, I swore up and down, I said, I have learned my lesson. I'm not doing this anymore.
Okay.
Well, guess what?
You did it again.
I did it again. You better believe it. They were down. The Lions had the ball with like 3 minutes left in Packers territory. I thought this thing is completely over.
Right.
Turned it off. 20 minutes later, I see on Facebook, nice win by the Packers. I'm like, what? You've got to be kidding me. But I think
only just a win by the Packers, like the most improbable finish we're going to have in the NFL this season.
Yep. And I missed it.
We're in a few seasons.
I really debated whether I should admit that I missed it, but I thought, you know what? It's almost become tradition now.
No.
I'm almost superstitious now where it's like, you know what? I can't watch. The only one of these things I've seen all season is that idiotic Browns game. The one game that meant nothing to anybody is the one I actually stuck around for.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's a fun one.
But, this was, I mean, what an incredible play, and I can't believe it.
Well, the Packers are back in first place.
Yeah.
In NFC North after you left them high and dry.
It's, I don't know. People are saying it saved their season. I don't know if I want to go that far with it, but it was a very important win.
Make the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, that was just, I'm still not confident of this team, though. I mean, because that was great that they got the win and all that, but that was a lot like the Michigan State win over Michigan. Mm-hmm. Probably shouldn't have happened. So I'm not confident, but I'll take it. But I'm still not confident in this team. Still a lot of problems.
Yeah, just, amazing. Like, I didn't actually get to see it until afterwards. I was following it on a computer screen. And, somebody, I left the room, I came back, and I got a little notification on my phone. Aaron Rodgers throws a 61-yard Hail Mary pass as Packers beat Lions. So I turned to the guy I was doing the game with, because he had Aaron Rodgers in his fantasy league. I'm like, and he was complaining the whole time, like, oh, Rodgers got me no points. I'm going to lose this week. So I turned to him like, Rodgers threw a 61-yard Hail Mary touchdown pass to win the game. He's like, you're lying to me. Like, no, please don't do this to me. You're lying. I'm like, no, I'm not lying. So he had to double check at 3 different spots, but it happened. It's a strange one, and I'm sure. And the Lions were hot. The Lions were making a little push there, but I guess that's also a situation of the Lions are the Lions. This is what they're going to do, much like the Browns did last week.
Right, and the Lions, I mean, people want to talk about the face mask call and all that, but the Lions still gave up the 60-plus yard touchdown Hail Mary.
Yeah. What do you do with a Hail Mary pass, Greg?
You knock it down.
You knock it down.
And you don't let the tight end start playing it like he's playing center field, backing his way into the end zone until he's right in perfect position to catch it.
Yeah.
Richard Rodgers was out there all by himself, just working his way back, and it came right to him because he played it. There was nobody there to even defend him.
It was one of the easier Hail Mary catches I've ever seen.
Exactly.
Put it that way.
But like I said, they didn't deserve the win, but I'll certainly take the win.
Yep. Hell of an effort, and the Packers moved to 8-4, back in first place in the NFC North. On to Sunday, where, some weird games, some strange results. We'll start with why the Packers are back in first place. The Vikings at home look pretty bad.
Yeah.
In a 38-7 beatdown by the Seahawks, who are all of a sudden on fire, are 7-5, and they're going to end up being the first wild card at when this thing's all said and done, probably.
They're going to be the first wild card, and they're going to be red hot, and they're going to be trouble. I mean, I look at it and I think, okay, not necessarily who can beat them, but who can't they beat in the NFC right now?
Mm-hmm.
The only team I'd feel entirely confident against the Seahawks would be the Panthers. Anybody else, all bets are off. Anything could happen. And this team, they wouldn't die all season, and now here they are right in the thick of it. And you know what? I wouldn't be a bit surprised at all if they make the Super Bowl again for the third straight year.
Well, this is what they did last year.
Yeah.
They started off kind of slow, and then they kind of got their momentum going. They hit December and just full throttle to the end. It frustrates me, and you know, anyone who's listened to the show knows we're not huge fans of the Seahawks or Russell Wilson, but they've figured themselves out and they're rolling. You know, losing Jimmy Graham finally got inserted in the offense last week. They lose him that same week. You think, well, maybe that's going to hurt them. Doesn't matter. Now they're rolling, and a schedule that might have looked tough for the Seahawks. This was one of the tough games they had left on the schedule.
Yeah.
Now they go Ravens, Browns, Rams, and finish up at the Cardinals, who may or may not have anything to play for.
Yeah, all of a sudden, I mean, you're looking at a potential 11-5 season out of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, if I would have to assume they win the next 3 games, unless something really dumb happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're playing the Ravens and Matt Schaub, and the Browns and the resurgent Johnny Manziel. How do you like
the Ravens' chances with Matt Schaub at quarterback against that Seattle secondary? Come on, yeah.
No. So they're at the very least they're 7-5 right now. They're going to get 10. They're in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
You can already put the X by their name if you want to, because they're not going to lose any of these next 3 games.
Nope. And then you're going to have a Cardinals team that may have their position locked up at that point, has absolutely nothing to play for.
Exactly. Yeah, because they already have a 2-game lead over the Packers right now. They're 2 games behind the Panthers, so they're not going to get the first bye, I don't think. And Cardinals are going to have things locked up, and Seattle just might get that 11th win. You're right.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you've got a team that not 4 weeks ago we're going, they're finally finished. They're done, and they're going to be 11-5 and a serious contender for the Super Bowl again.
Yeah. The only thing to maybe worry about, so they're 7-5. They're 3 games behind the Cardinals, but the Cardinals still play the Vikings on Thursday. The Eagles, who looked strangely good.
Yeah, where'd that come from? But yeah.
Then the Packers and the Seahawks. If the Cardinals slip here, Seattle will eat them up in that last game.
Yeah.
So, like, if the Cardinals lose 2 of those 3, and then the Seahawks know if they win that game, they could win the division potentially.
Right.
Ugh.
That's what I mean. I'm not even ready to write out the Seahawks as a wild card team. They might still have a shot at a division title and maybe even a bye right now. The way things could play out. Yeah.
Very, very possible.
I don't like them. I don't know if I don't think I dislike Russell Wilson more than I dislike the team. But you got to give him credit. I mean, geez.
Sure.
You know? But, and the Vikings, my irrational confidence, I dropped the irrational last week. I'm putting it back on this week.
What happened to Teddy Bridgewater?
I don't know. Well, he played a really good defense, but who was it? It was either Dan Patrick or on Bill Simmons. I heard that it seems like teams have figured out that if you just put 9 men on the box against the Vikings, that you're going to have an easy time beating him because he's not going to tear you up throwing the ball a lot. And, if you can stop Adrian Peterson, pretty easy team to beat.
Right. Elsewhere early on, we talked about the Cardinals. They went into Arizona or St. Louis and did their business. 27-3 win over the Rams. Cards are 10-2. As we said, the Rams, really, really wheels falling off for them. Elsewhere in the NFC, the Buccaneers pull out a late win over the Falcons, 23-19. Falcons fall to 6-6, while the Buccaneers rise to 6-6. Buccaneers are hanging around. I mean, they're a game behind the Seahawks. But as we said, the Seahawks are hot. If Minnesota continues to slip, maybe Tampa Bay takes advantage of a weak schedule and slides in the back end here. But
how about this Falcons team, though? They look pretty good.
This is what I thought the Falcons were, though.
Yeah, they fooled me. I'll be the first to say that. They tricked the hell out of me. I thought they were pretty good this year, but man, not at all.
6-6. Congrats to the Bucs to getting to 6-6, and the Falcons. I guess 6-6 is probably where I expect them to be at the end of the day, but I don't know.
Yeah, but
I don't think either of these 2 teams are going to make the playoffs, though. I think the Vikings will hold on, but
I don't think the Falcons have any shot at all. I mean, I'm going to be surprised if the Falcons go 8-8 at this point.
Yeah,
they're just not good, and I'm going to be curious. This Bucs team is headed in the right direction. I mean, at first I thought, wow, Jameis Winston, I'm not so sure about, but you know what? They're not bad.
Not half bad. They've got an easy schedule, so they might be picking off some of the minnows, but still. pretty good.
I would have never guessed in a million years they'd be 6-6 at this point at the beginning of the season. Just no way. Mm-hmm. So very impressive job by Lovie Smith and the coaching staff down there. Nice work.
Elsewhere, the battle for the MetLife Stadium Jets-Giants goes into overtime. And Giants. Why does nobody want to win the NFC East?
I don't know, but in particular, the Giants do not want any part of it.
The Giants scored 20 points in the second quarter, up 20-10 at half, throw it away to the Jets in the fourth quarter, just shank the game-winning field goal in overtime, and the Jets come back and win it with a field goal of their own, 23-20.
I don't even know what to make of this Giants team at this point. They just clearly do not want to make the playoffs. You know, I don't know what to say. I mean, they have had this thing handed to them. I got to think at least 5 times this season. Mm-hmm. When the division was theirs for the taking, they just had to go out and get it, and they just do not want it. And
the best part is the Giants are still tied for first. 5-7, and they're tied for first. A 3-way tie for first.
I think we can pretty much guarantee that there's not going to be a 500 team winning that division this year in the NFC East. I think we're looking at 7-9, maybe worse. I'm telling you.
Maybe.
And we'll get to them in a minute, but the freaking Cowboys are stunning. But yeah, the Jets 7-5, better than I thought they'd be at this point.
Yep. Right now, if the playoffs started today, they'd be the second wild card team. They're 7-5, tied with the Chiefs and Steelers. The defense continues to win, do wonders for them. And they've gotten a little lucky here with like a game like this, but
sure.
Definitely a good season for the Jets, better than anyone thought. Even if they don't make the playoffs, Todd Bowles has done a pretty good job in his first season there with the Jets.
Well, and we've talked about it a gazillion times this season, but Ryan Fitzmagic, all he's got to do is not kill you. I mean, he was 390 yards in this game. You'd like to see more than 23 points out of that, but still.
Yeah,
Jets team, I would have never guessed they'd be 7-5 at this point either.
Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't the quarterback of the future, but I think they can firmly say that they don't want to use Geno Smith.
No.
And it would behoove the Jets to maybe get a more prototypical quarterback in this year's draft rather than somebody that's going to run around like a Geno Smith maybe.
Yep.
And maybe then if that's all they need, then maybe they'll be right back in this position next year and they can be contenders. But they are contenders right now. They're 7-5 and rolling along. Elsewhere, two teams fighting for the wild card spot as well. The Texans and the Bills. The Bills rise up for a 31-20 win over the Texans. The Bills move up to 6-6. The Texans fall to 6-6. The Bills still sit one game out of the playoff, one game out of the wild card. Texans also one game out of the wild card, but still tied with Indianapolis for the AFC South lead.
I think the Bills are the perfect example of this year of a team that had a couple of games they should have won and they didn't, and it's coming back to kill them now.
Oh yeah. No, they're not half bad, but they're not particularly good either.
No. They couldn't afford. I want to look at their schedule really quick. They couldn't afford to like they lost to the Giants when they probably should have had. They lost to the Jaguars. Mm-hmm. A couple of those there. I mean, come on, the Chiefs, Patriots, okay, we can live with that, but a couple of games there where they win those games are sitting pretty, and that's the difference though between a good team and a team that's not so good, and that's where the Bills are. Yeah, I mean, you just need to win one of those games and you're in a wild card spot right now. Right. You take the Jaguars game is probably the biggest instance there. But that's a weird one in London and whatever. But still, yeah, they're right there. Dolphins knock off the Ravens in a game no one cares about, 15-13. The little headline on ESPN: Dolphins battled hard to beat Ravens. Yeah, good. I'm glad that they played hard. Good for them. Yeah. Matt Schaub, 308 yards. Did he throw any pick sixes? That's my question. Probably. Bengals beat the Browns pretty well, 37-3. Bengals 10-2, and all of a sudden, due to some other things we'll talk about, the number one seed in the AFC. Yeah. What happened to you, Cincinnati? Sneaking around like that. And I guess Austin Davis, not the answer for the downtrodden Cleveland Browns. Yeah. Johnny Manziel will be the starter this weekend, they already said. Yeah, it's funny how that works. That when the other quarterbacks lose and you say, oh, well, I guess you learned your lesson now. Right. It was like, we're going to stand on principle here until, we can't use McCown anymore, and Austin Davis isn't very good. So all of a sudden, it's okay. Yeah. Right, yeah. Titans and Jaguars, two teams that don't mean anything, but an entertaining game, at least once it got to the fourth quarter. The teams combined for 41 points in the fourth quarter. The hell did that come from? How about my boy Blake Bortles? 322 yards, 5 touchdown passes.
Pretty good. Marcus Mariota was the leading rusher for the Titans. 9 carries for 112 yards. 1 touchdown.
Yeah.
42-39. The Titans knock off the Jags. Jesus.
Meaningless but fun. Yeah. A lot of points.
Fun.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the one thing that, like, when the bad teams get together, they're kind of useful for that.
Yeah.
But, you know.
So I can take watching bad football teams as long as they're entertaining somehow.
Yeah.
You know, I like the Browns are just bad and not fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, that win pulls the Titans out of the cellar. The Browns are now the worst team in football, 2-10.
Cruising towards that number 1 pick that they will undoubtedly blow on somebody.
Can't wait. It's a tradition. Speaking of blowing it, the 49ers and Bears, what a crap football game. Goes into overtime. The 49ers pull one out, 26-20. I mean, these two teams don't matter, but what's his name? Blaine Gabbert's record as a starter for the 49ers now. Do we know? Probably like 2-1.
Oh, okay. Well, see, he's not doing too bad then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe somebody will show up to his press conference this week.
Yeah. He's probably got enough interest to have a reporter or two ask him a question. So that's a pretty good start for him, really. Or pretty good.
Moving up in the world.
Moving up in the world, exactly.
We move on to the afternoon. The Broncos beat the Chargers, not the most impressive way, but I don't even know if the Chargers were in this football stadium. 17-3, Broncos knock off the Chargers.
Did you get a chance
to 10-2 and are tied for the top of the AFC as well?
Did you get a chance to see any of this? I was curious to see how many Broncos fans were there versus Chargers fans.
There were a lot of Broncos fans.
I figured as much.
People are a little disenfranchised with the Chargers right now, and I don't blame them.
I don't blame them either. I'm just wondering what happens if they don't move.
Well, unfortunately, the way things are breaking down right now, it looks like the Chargers might be the most likely of all the teams to end up moving to Los Angeles, despite the actual people of Los Angeles's, misgivings.
Yeah, I mean, you're leaving a city that, okay, granted, it's hardly Green Bay or Pittsburgh or Dallas or wherever, but still.
San Diego's a great city.
It's a great city, first off. That's definite, but at least you've got a fan base there. You move to Los Angeles, nobody wants you.
Yeah, I mean, you can say all you want about the fans not showing up this year, but why would you?
Right.
The team's threatening to move every week, and they suck.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I wouldn't go either, but it's
put a product on the field. You've got a built-in fan base. You can go to Los Angeles, and I don't care if you go 14-2 next year. No one's going to care, especially if the Rams come back.
Even when the Chargers go 8-8, they still get people to fill up the stadium.
Yeah.
But when they're terrible like this, I don't blame you. But even when they're halfway decent, people still show up.
Well, I mean, look at like the Browns game. I mean, they want to talk about how Cleveland fans are so great. That thing was nothing but orange seats on Sunday after about the second quarter. Come on. No one wants to watch terrible football, and especially when you're threatening to leave.
Right. And especially in a game where you're going to lose, and all the Broncos fans down here love seeing their team when they come down. So,
yep.
So Broncos moved to 10-2, Chargers 3-9. Elsewhere in the AFC West, the resurgent Chiefs.
Yeah.
Continue their push 34-20 over the Raiders. Chiefs are the number 1 wild card team still, 7-5 on the season, a 20-point fourth quarter to pull away in this one.
Ran up their 6th win in a row, I believe, was that one, right?
Indeed, yep.
Yeah, they're looking pretty good. This game was a little closer than the score would indicate. The Chiefs kind of pulled away late, but hey, 7-5 and making me look like a genius for picking them as my new AFC team, so I'm happy.
Yeah, I really like the Chiefs right now. I saw a couple of people already saying that they're their dark horse Super Bowl pick already.
No.
But I'm going to go ahead and say the Chiefs are in the playoffs, though. These are the last 4 games. Chargers, Ravens, Browns, Raiders.
Okay. Theoretically, yes. They should win all 4 of those, and that should be good enough for an 11-5 season. At least 3 out of the 4 of those go 10-6. But we're talking Andy Reid. We're talking the Chiefs have been in this spot before. I mean, what was it, 2 years ago where all they had to do was win a couple games and they were in and they completely just fell apart and didn't get there. So
True.
I'm not ready to put them in the playoffs yet. I like their positioning right now, but I'm taking it 1 game at a time with these guys.
I would too, but the only game I can see them losing are maybe the Ravens and Raiders game, and just because it's a road game against the Ravens, maybe they're frisky, but Chargers are awful. The Browns are awful. Those are both home games. The Raiders game's a home game too, but I like where the Chiefs are at right now. They're playing well.
Well, they've got 3 out of 4 of those at home. Yeah, that's better.
But Ravens.
But yeah, I mean, every logical thing you would think says to say, yeah, they're going to make the playoffs. But I've been here with these guys before. I'm going to take a wait and see attitude.
That's true. I don't doubt you. Elsewhere, the Panthers with a back and forth game in New Orleans. They pull out a 41-38 win. The Panthers move to 12-0 on the season, and they're the first team to clinch the division. 12-0, they're division champions already with 4 weeks left.
And that's what, almost 2 times as many wins as it took to win that division last year?
Right. I think they've won a total of like 15 games in a row, 14 games in a row at this point.
Wow.
And this is their schedule, their last 4 games. Home against the Falcons, at the Giants, at the Falcons, home against the Bucs.
See, here's the thing, though. If you're Ron Rivera and you've got everything wrapped up, do you do a was it Tony Dungy or Jim Caldwell? Where the Colts were undefeated and they sat.
It was Caldwell.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do?
It's hard to say. The thing with like the Panthers too is because of the style they play. Maybe you do want to rest some guys. Mm-hmm. You don't want to risk losing Cam Newton to a dumb thing or Luke Kuechly, on a defensive play. But if you're a fan though, you have a perfect season that you could possibly get to. It like I remember when the Colts were in that position, and I understood it. But man, it killed you, and it kind of, for me, in my mind, it almost took the wind out of the Colts' sails that year.
I think it absolutely took the wind out of their sails that year.
Like they said, okay, well now we're just not going to have to play we're not going to play the next 2 weeks essentially, and then we have the bye. Mm-hmm. So they didn't play any meaningful or hard football for 3 weeks, and they go into the wild card game and lose.
You played football in high school. Is there a sport out there that is more routine oriented than football? Where
it's a routine, it's a rhythm. You have to stay with it, and maybe you rest some guys like late in the games, but you have to at least play them.
See, that was my thinking with Caldwell and the Colts. Okay, you want to rest Peyton Manning, fine. Wait until after they're up 38-10 and then sit him down.
Yeah, or just do the second half.
Yeah.
Sit him in the second half. Like, at least let them play a good majority of the snaps and play hard, and then you say, okay, out. But, I mean, there's the risk of anybody getting injured on any single play.
Sure.
So it's hard to say, but
it hasn't happened in the past couple of years. There was a stretch there in the NFL where it seemed like every year a wild card team would get hot towards the end of the season and win the Super Bowl. We saw the Packers do it. We saw the Steelers do it.
I mean, you're looking at the Seahawks and Chiefs right now.
Yeah.
Who are both on these big win streaks, pushing back in, surging. Nobody wants to play those teams, and that's why a lot of people pick them as their dark horse Super Bowl picks already, because that's just how things have run. And when you're these top teams, you're down there. But I think the Panthers play with a different sort of edge, because even though they're 12-0, I don't think a lot of people truly respect how good this team is. And so maybe they say, well, we're 12-0, but we have a chip on our shoulder. We're going to play hard until the final snap. But who knows? They're 12-0 at the very least, and that's all that matters.
And they've got a really good shot with that schedule to win 16-0.
Really do.
Yeah.
They really, really do. I mean, but you remember when the Patriots were doing it, or when the Patriots did it, you saw at the end of that season, teams that weren't maybe good enough to beat them played them as hard as any team in the league did, because they wanted to be the team that knocked off the perfect season.
I think an undefeated season would be great. It would be incredible, especially in this day and age, because it's just so damn hard to do. But I also think that it's better. Like, I think the Patriots are in better shape having dropped a couple of games now where they don't have to worry about that anymore. They just focus on the task at hand. And with this Panthers team, I would love to see them do it, but it ain't going to break my heart to see them lose a game either, because I think that would help them in the long run, maybe.
I think the Panthers are the best team in football right now.
Absolutely.
And I say that with a little bit more emphasis because the previous team that I thought was the best team in football, even though they lost a week ago, the Patriots got trounced. The Patriots just flat out got trounced by the Eagles at home after a loss. Like, I understand the Patriots don't have any receivers, but they were down 35-14 at one point. And the Patriots made a little comeback late, but 35-28, the Pats fall at home to the Eagles? The freaking Eagles?
Yeah, the Eagles behind, was it Sam Bradford played this game?
Did he play this
I'm not
game?
even sure. I don't know. I'm asking you.
I'm opening up the thing. I actually don't know.
I know they got like 21 points off special teams. They had I want to say they had an interception return for a touchdown, a punt return, and a kickoff
Sam
return.
Bradford was the quarterback, yeah. Yeah, they returned a couple interceptions, the punt return, yeah. So things kind of all went against the Pats in this game. And this was also a game, if you remember, or if you saw, a week ago, the NFL demoted a refereeing crew that had reffed the Cardinals 49ers a week ago.
Yeah.
Because they were supposed to be the Sunday night game. Well, they demoted them to this game, and apparently they weren't any better. So, a lot of things went against the Pats in this game, but still.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I can't see any way they should lose to the Eagles. I understand that they really are down to like no skill position players at all for the most part, but the Eagles are terrible. And I don't know. I mean, I'm happy. I'm glad to see them lose because the last thing I want is for them to get the number 1 seed, because I think if you take them out of Gillette Stadium in the playoffs, it levels the playing field quite a bit. So I'm glad to see it, but there's no excuse for this, really.
I mean, they have no receivers or anything, but look, Tom Brady still got a guy named James White for 10 receptions for 115 yards. Danny Amendola was 7 catches, 62 yards.
I think this game went off the rails for the Patriots when they tried that stupid drop kick.
Yeah. I don't know
what that was about, but it sure seemed like that changed the whole everything in that game. But nice job, Eagles. Way to go.
Yeah, the Eagles 5-7 tied for the NFC East because this was a bad football game on Monday night. The Cowboys pull it out late with a late field goal to top Washington, 19-16. So Washington falls to 5-7. The Cowboys are 4-8 in one game out of the division lead.
This game was complete, utter garbage until about the last minute and 30 seconds.
Ugh.
Just terrible football. And then all of a sudden, boom, and oh man.
All right. So let's look at this realistically. The Cowboys are last place in the NFC. But they're a game out of first in the division. Washington is 5-7. The Eagles are 5-7. The Giants are 5-7. The Cowboys are 4-8.
You said it last week, and I said, okay, way to go out on a limb. I'm with you. The team that wins the most games wins this division. That's the best I got.
I can't make heads or tails of this damn division right now.
Somebody will win it, and
well, somebody has to.
And they'll get slaughtered in the first round, and that'll be that. Or, of course, if things go according to form, they will come out of this thing at 6-10 and win their first round game.
There's no way anybody wins this thing with a winning record, right?
No.
Nobody's going to go 4-0 down the stretch.
No.
At the best, we're 7-9.
Yeah.
At the best, we're 7-9, and I wouldn't be sad to see a 6-10 division winner just because it's funny.
They're just going to stumble all over each other the rest of the way out, and that's going to be that.
And that'll do it, I think.
Yeah. That's it.
Any last things? Any last words that you have before we go away?
Well, go Packers and try to win one legitimately this week. Beat the Cowboys.
Go Colts. You need it, guys. You really need it.
Got to shut down Blake Bortles.
So we'll reconvene next week for more NFL football, one college football game, that Army-Navy game, always a fun American-type tradition. Follow us on all of our platforms, Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, etc., etc. Listen to our other podcasts in the Basically a Podcast Network. For Greg, I'm Zach. This has been Basically a Football Show. Enjoy the football.
This is snowy Lambeau Field, the home of the Green Bay Packers, as today the Packers play host to the Minnesota Vikings. Hi, everybody. I'm Gary Bender, and alongside me, a man who's in Pro Football's Hall of Fame, number 19, Johnny Unitas.